This is Matthew Kratter's Bitcoin University. Today I want to talk about how Bitcoin is not magically anti-fragile. And this is based on a comment from this video, which was called "Has the Bitcoin Bear Market Already Begun?" And C. Kelly Me 3 wrote in, "Matt, this is the content I'm here for. Please keep up this type of Bitcoin content. To say you've covered the core issue, the Bitcoin core issue, too much would be an understatement. I get how important it is, but you can only do so much, and trust me, you've done more than enough. I really think you should consider going back to this type of content. You're one of the best at it. The core issue will work itself out." And my response to the comment, I'd much prefer doing this kind of content daily as well, but I disagree with you on one thing, that this issue will work itself automatically out without all of us taking action. Nothing works itself out magically. Bitcoin will not be fine if Bitcoiners don't do their part. I can't emphasize enough how dire the situation is right now. I do genuinely appreciate your support and feedback. So this is what I wanted to talk about today and make the argument that Bitcoin is not magically anti-fragile. Instead, as we've talked about before in some videos, Bitcoin is a social consensus that relies on Bitcoin's culture being transmitted from generation to generation. And Bitcoin's culture is centered on Bitcoin as a monetary network, which tries to do one thing and only one thing really well, and that is to provide a compact and streamlined base layer for the best digital money that the world has ever seen. And this digital money, what makes it so good is because it has a credibly fixed supply, and thus is a very good store of value. It's permissionless, it's unstoppable, and is all without a middleman. You can make payments, it's open to everyone. But here's the thing, just because Bitcoin is permissionless and open to everyone doesn't mean that you're allowed to come here and play your own games that conflict with Bitcoin's central use case. So for example, if I'm playing chess with friends and you want to join the group and play checkers and we say no, we're not censoring you or oppressing you, we're simply telling you that you're in the wrong place to play a game of checkers. Another example would be if you want to urinate in our kitchen and we're trying to cook and we try to stop you, you're not a victim of authoritarianism. You're simply someone who doesn't understand that food preparation is negatively affected by human waste. Or you're a bad person who does understand this, but just doesn't care, in which case you're probably also an investor in or employee of a company like Taproot Wizards or Citrea. Spamming Bitcoin is like urinating in the kitchen or interrupting a chess game and trying to turn it into a game of checkers. Now, anyone is welcome to use Bitcoin as money, but no one is welcome to use Bitcoin as large file cloud storage. And that's why Bitcoin Core devs blowing open op return and thus signaling to the world that Bitcoin is now willing to accept large amounts of non-monetary data is such a bad thing for Bitcoin's social consensus and culture. Op return has always been the officially sanctioned place to put arbitrary data, so it really does send a clear message to the world when the reference implementation, namely Bitcoin Core, expands this space from 80 bytes to 100,000 bytes. That's a very large signal to the world. As you've seen over the past few months, Bitcoin's social consensus is enforced by disagreeable, grumpy, toxic Bitcoiners who comprise Bitcoin's immune system. And to sort of paraphrase Thomas Jefferson, I would say the price of freedom money is eternal vigilance. And so this is the point here. If Bitcoiners don't protect and preserve Bitcoin's culture through their toxicity, then no one else will. And you can be sure that intel agencies and other attackers and other groups that hate Bitcoin are very interested in corrupting and disrupting Bitcoin's culture, just like they're very interested in corrupting other benevolent forms of human culture like marriage, families, and the list goes on, always in the name of some sort of fake liberation. As for giving up on my normal Bitcoin daily content, the kind of content I used to do before this crisis, I think the commenter may be missing something else that's been going on here. So it may seem like we've been painting the same fence day after day, like Karate Kid, but something else has been happening along the way, because thanks to this crisis, we've been getting daily real-time lessons in Bitcoin governance and consensus. This was something I always wanted to cover on this channel, and there never seemed to be a good way to cover it. And to be honest, I didn't really understand how it worked, and we're still all trying to figure out how it works. But we've been getting daily real-time lessons in Bitcoin governance and consensus, in node software development, in Bitcoin's cultural history, in Bitcoin mining and mining pools and mining pool centralization. Also daily lessons in Bitcoin opcodes like op return, which a lot of us didn't really know about before. Also how soft forks and hard forks work and many other advanced topics. So while it may look like we're just painting the fence, we're actually flexing our skills and learning a lot of new things. If you're enjoying this video so far, just pause really briefly here to ask you to help to support this channel's educational mission. Hit the subscribe button, that does really help. leave a like, leave a comment, question, suggestion for a future video, and share this video with a friend or family member. But perhaps the biggest accomplishment of the past 6 months, I would say, is that many, many more Bitcoiners have started running their own nodes and using them for their own economic activity. And I can't emphasize enough how important this is for the health of the network and for helping to keep Bitcoin decentralized. We can see the number of NOTs nodes continues to go vertical and is now hovering around 21, 22% of the network. If you want to learn how to run a Bitcoin NOTs node yourself, I'll put a link to these free resources in the description notes below. Now, Bitcoiners dumping Bitcoin Core for Bitcoin NOTs is a sign of a healthy Bitcoin immune system, I think. What else really would you expect people to do once they realized that Bitcoin Core had gone rogue and pushed through a contentious change that only spammers and Bitcoin affinity scammers were interested in? If Bitcoiners had not abandoned Bitcoin Core in droves after it went rogue, I would almost certainly have sold at least half of my Bitcoin by this point, I think, because if Bitcoin's immune system is broken, then there's really no point. You're at the point of a rapid decline, since Bitcoin is not magically anti-fragile without the immune system of hostile, toxic Bitcoiners who want to keep it a monetary network. But fortunately, Bitcoiners have been dumping Core in record numbers and running NOTs. And so I remain optimistic that we can fix the problems that Bitcoin Core and the spammers have caused over the past 2 years. That's not to say that what's happened already hasn't been a complete disaster. Just imagine turning the Bitcoin network into a relay service for CSAM and other terrible things just because some crypto startup needed something like this. And it's a good reminder, this recent interview that Breedlove did with Jameson Lopp, this is a good reminder of really what started this whole problem with OpReturn. So let's hear the use case that Bitcoin Core thought it would fix.
So this was a question that came up with one of the guests we had on arguing the side of NOTs, and his core question of contention was, what problem does taking the ceiling of OpReturn from 80 to was it 80 bytes to 100 kilobytes, I think you said. What problem does that solve?
Yeah, so this specifically solves the edge case where someone needs to have visibility of that data in an unconfirmed state across the network, and they can't wait for the data to show up in a block. It's an extreme edge case, and like we said, I think Citrea is the only example of that we have now, but who knows what similar second layer protocols will come along that may have similar needs.
So we open up the Bitcoin network to CSAM, but who knows what future use cases it could create for some imaginary startup that doesn't exist. This is why OpReturn was blown up, or at least this is Lopp's version of it. And it looks like the CEO or the co-founder of Citrea confirms this. If OpReturn allowed 144 bytes and was mined timely, it would suffice. So what Bitcoin Core could have done, it would have been, I think, politically and socially much smarter, is just raise OpReturn from 80 bytes to, call it 144 bytes. Now, they still shouldn't be doing this for a startup, but I do think we need to keep digging, figure out exactly what happened here. As I said, Bitcoin Core should certainly not be bending over backwards for some Bitcoin affinity scam startup like Citrea. But even if this is what happened, why 100,000 bytes and not 144 bytes for OpReturn? Because that's all Citrea would have needed. Who is paid off? Is there some nefarious plan down the road that requires uncapped OpReturns? I think we need to keep digging, and we still need to get to the bottom of this, because this is just one of the most unbelievable things. This whole crisis is caused because Antoine Poinceau has a conversation with an employee of Citrea, and then this whole thing moves forward with blowing open OpReturn. So this is not how Bitcoin node software development should work, to say the least. As Parker Lewis summarizes here, I think quite well, why he's not updating to Bitcoin Core version 30. Number one, it was never a debate. A decision was made. And we all know, and we all felt that at the time and have felt that since then, that there was some decision made. This was pushed through in a very hostile way in spite of a lot of pushback from the community. So we need to keep thinking about this. And for now, running Bitcoin NOTs is the best way to help to solve this problem. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.